Today on Knucklehead Podcast. Today we cover not participating in the world of filters, entrepreneurs that can talk to you and give you real information, like Derrick from Total Health Evolution.
For one, I felt like that was the point where it really tested me as an entrepreneur. That is really when you're at that point of either you're gonna put up or shut up.
All right. Hey, what's up, y'all? This is Knucklehead Podcast. We got D White in the house. Derrick White is a buddy of mine. Hey, listen, before we get rolling, Total Health Evolution, one of our first guests here at Knucklehead Podcast. But Knucklehead is on SoundCloud. We are Knucklehead Podcast. We're Facebook, Unofficial Knucklehead, Instagram, Knucklehead Podcast. We're on Twitter. We're on all that social media stuff. So follow us there, download. Also, we got Derrick here. Just a quick background on Derrick. Derrick can talk a little bit about what he's done, the things that he's done. We know each other from the Marine Corps. We also know each other because he just trained my wife in her first fitness competition. Derrick's been doing that for how long have you been in fitness now?
8 years.
8 years. And so some of that overlaps with time in the Marine Corps though too, right?
I started doing personal training while I was in the Marine Corps.
Really? So you're burning the candle at both ends.
That's what I do.
That's what entrepreneurs do, man. I feel you there. So, D White, you own Total Health Evolution. You got supplements in stores. You got distribution here in Central Texas, or where at?
Correct. So the supplements are distributed out of Central Texas, but they go all around, primarily at local gyms to just kind of cater to their small clientele. But as of right now, it's local and distributes across statewide.
Sweet. That's something that you started out of a need, or how did you get started with the supplement business?
Well, the supplements, it came down to, it's kind of funny. So for the longest, I kind of railed against supplement stores because I didn't feel like they gave the correct guidance to their buyers. So you would have someone who would sell an appetite suppressant without inquiring about the number of calories that the person was consuming. So you can't realistically, you just shouldn't tell someone how to suppress their appetite if they're already not eating enough.
Yeah, that makes sense.
And if their goal is to lose weight, some people don't understand the whole idea that it is possible to not eat enough to lose weight. You also have supplement stores who will sell fat burners and thermogenics to people and not inquire or even at least give the heads up to consume more water. And so it mainly came down to if people really want it, they really want something that can aid them in their fitness goals, at least have the guidance to go along with it. So it was more so of if this is what they want, this is how they should probably take it, and kind of educate them along the process.
So it's interesting how you kind of came up with that solution, to be honest with you, because it ties in with what the purpose of this, not only just what this podcast is, but I was listening to somebody a little bit earlier. They were talking about how, when you have somebody who's identified a problem, it's one thing to identify a problem. It's another thing to identify a problem, come up with a solution, and then implement that solution. Right? So a lot of times our mistakes, and everybody knows that the point of this podcast is really just to highlight the fact that nobody's perfect. You don't have to live in a world of filters. You don't have to essentially present one image on social media to create a smoke and mirrors. And to a certain extent, Derrick and I, what we experienced when we were in the Marine Corps was the training and this propping up of a framework of, hey, here's how you go from undisciplined civilian, parents are making your bed the week before you join Marine Corps. I don't know if that was true for you. That was not true for me. But, there was some guys in our platoon that felt that way. And then now all of a sudden you're a fully functioning, rifle carrying, disciplined, in some cases knucklehead, but in most cases you're at least a basic Marine.
Of course.
And now you have this framework to operate in and be successful. And when that goes away in the world of entrepreneurship, there's no framework. And you were doing both at the same time. So if it's okay with you, walk me through kind of whenever you first decided, you know what, I'm going to start a business, but you're still active duty Marine. You still have the obligations. You still got physical fitness requirements. You got personalities. They're dynamic that you're working with at the office. You're raising a family. I mean, you got a bunch of stuff going on. Talk to me about starting a business.
So I was that weird kid in second and third grade when everybody else would tell the teacher, I want to be a doctor, lawyer, president when I grew up. I was that.
You want to be a doctor, really?
No, when other kids would say that, I was that weird kid that said I want to be an entrepreneur, and probably before I know how to spell it. It's just something about the whole idea of entrepreneurship that's always excited me. Just the general idea that everything that you look at, everything that you touch, everything that you see, started in somebody's brain and then evolved into what you see in front of you.
That's awesome.
I just always thought that was inspirational and just incredible, just something that the human body could do.
Did you see somebody doing it? Like, and you're like, man, I'm gonna do that.
No, once again, being that weird kid, I would always ask, like, man, who thought of, like, blinds? Who thought of curtains? And then, like, eventually, like, it started, once you get to that point with adults, especially when you have kids, that you know, like, they go through the why phase, and at some point, you got to kind of give them, like, this little broad thing that's going to confuse the hell out of them for, like, the next 10 years. Yeah, the response that I got back was it was invented by an entrepreneur. Like, wait a minute, what's an entrepreneur? Entrepreneur is somebody who, you know, they solve problems, they come up with their own businesses, they invent things. It's a host of things. So that's what I attached myself to. And I don't think I learned what an entrepreneur was until like 5 years later.
So it's interesting, the way that you described that, you saw what everybody else was doing and you just decided to go the opposite way.
Pretty much.
Right. So
it was a knucklehead.
Yeah, I mean, it is that way. I mean, and it's a conscious decision. You're like, oh, I'm going to do what everybody else is not doing.
Exactly.
And so obviously you're met with resistance when you decide to do that.
Of course.
Right. And when you're met with resistance, you know, some of the framework that you developed in the Marine Corps, at least disciplines are, you know, we run towards challenges, right? And don't tell me I can't do something because I'm going to go show you I'm going to do it.
Right.
What happens whenever you make that decision and all of a sudden success doesn't follow those actions? Because that also happens in entrepreneurship.
It does. So just to moonwalk just a bit, my first business was actually started at the ripe age of 20 years old. I started a business called International Linguistics. It was a linguistics company. I still have my very first polo shirt from that. And the whole idea was I was a contractor where I would subcontract linguistic work to people who were bilingual in different industries. And I did that while I was in undergrad and took that business to Belize. And that's the very first major failure of entrepreneurship. At 21 years old, I went to Belize to establish a call center with very little operating capital, very little knowledge of getting business loans. I mean, not to really tell my age, but social media wasn't really that big then.
Yeah.
You still had to use a college email to get on the Facebook.
Yeah.
All that good stuff. But it was just a lot of things I did not know.
That's cool.
And I was presented with a really great opportunity to open a call center in Belize. And just my sheer ignorance, pretty much I talked myself out of it. So I came back stateside.
Fear of failure is a really real thing.
It is. It was definitely paralysis by analysis, and also just intertwined with just true lack of knowledge. 20, 21 years old is a lot of things that you just don't know, especially when you're trying to dive in that deep into something that massive. So
that's awesome. So I don't mean to cut you off.
No, go for it.
So fear of failure, you talked yourself out of it.
Right.
But you would talk to somebody. Is this something you just did? Or did you talk to somebody about the process? I'm going to go to Belize. I'm going to do this call center thing. Or did you just go into it and not talk to anybody about it?
Just went into it.
Okay, so when you said you talked yourself out of it, you didn't talk to anybody beforehand. So really it was just all that energy that went into it. It was just now you're dealing with the blowback of doubt and fear and all that crap.
So the call center itself, going to Belize, the call center, all that good stuff was not something that was an aspiration.
Yeah.
Started International Linguistics with the goal of just building a business that that I felt like people needed.
Yeah.
It went through a few different phases, but I went to a Chamber of Commerce meeting in Houston, and they had a need for a linguistics company, regardless of if it was well developed or if it was still in its infancy.
Okay.
And there I was. And they had also established an economic partnership with Belize.
Really?
And
The city of Houston?
yeah. So it was the city of Houston during this time. This was 2001.
Oh, you're from Houston, though.
Well, ish, yeah.
Okay.
But so they established this partnership, and we went down there as part of this whole economic driven mission initiative thing, and it was interesting. I learned a lot about the different cultures, but when they took me out there, I was really expecting just to learn what was out there and what type of need I can fulfill.
Yeah.
And being that they spoke mostly English with a bit of a Creole form of from the CARICOM Islands or CARICOM region, there was really no need in my eyes for linguistic services. But there was an opportunity to open a call center, which would yield upwards towards 300% of profit because of the cost of living wages and everything along those lines. And it was just a beautiful opportunity. But because it was never a true aspiration of mine, you didn't
really have the passion for it to fuel you past that fear of failure.
Right.
Now, I understand that. I understand that because you touched on a point about low capitalization or low at least resources accessible to you at this point. So if in fact you're going to bridge the gap, you got to go take somebody else's money. Mm-hmm. And if you're not going to see that project all the way through, fear of failure is not anything to mess around with.
Right.
Because that's a big deal. I understand that.
Yeah.
That's a far cry away from fitness services though, man. So
it is.
Fitness services, Marine Corps. So the mistakes that you took from that experience. So if you could walk me through maybe 2 mistakes that you felt like you made, aside from the fact that you didn't have somebody talking with you about this, that you feel like actually helped you learn on your next endeavor.
Oh, I'll tell you right off the top. So the way I decided to self-finance for my call center was to go and become a club promoter and generate money that way.
Okay.
That
in Belize?
No, it was in Houston.
I got you.
But that ended up being a lot more difficult than I thought. For one, I was still young and I got caught up in the lifestyle, and then 2, it was just more challenging. But I learned more trying to hustle to build up the money for Belize, being a club promoter and working in the club industry.
Yep.
And truth be told, I think the best entrepreneurial experience and lessons that I learned was working in the club industry, because you have to learn how to interact with people. You have to learn how to read people.
Yep.
You have to learn how to promote, market yourself. And once again, not to show my age, but this is before social media. We had to kind of push things on MySpace. That's just cracked the seal.
For all of you who are listening who are millennials, this pre-social media, social media was not in the 70s. Derrick was not quite that seasoned. So it was though probably in the 90s knowing him. So I'm just kidding. Wait, you're only 38 now, right? 38, 39?
36.
36. See, he's not that old.
Yeah.
You kidding me? I'm 35. All right, so you had to learn how to function. First of all, being a promoter,
correct,
right? Because you have somebody else's services, talents, gifts, and abilities that you're trying to market to promotion, right? Excuse me, market to clubs, right? It wasn't your talent.
No,
it wasn't your gift. No. It was somebody else's. So you were a talent broker in a way. You're like, all right, listen, you can have 500 people coming into your club on Friday and Saturday night. I'm going to book 5 shows or whatever, right? Is that kind of
ish for the most part?
All right. So to a certain extent, you've always been kind of coordinating logistics. You've always been kind of bridging the gap and helping people come together,
of course.
Which also makes sense on why you want to do fitness shows now, but I'm sure you'll talk about that in a second.
Yeah.
So Marine Corps, that doesn't necessarily line up with entrepreneurship, but you see a lot of Marines understand the discipline component and the framework and the way that they structure small unit leadership, they parlay that into successful business ownership or high level, C-level, executive level management out in there in corporate America. Why didn't you just go that route instead of being an entrepreneur?
Once again, going back to that creepy kid, I always wanted to be my own boss.
Okay. Do you like being told what to do?
I don't mind it. I'm actually a good student.
Really?
I am. Like even as a fitness professional, I go to like.
Stand it. I can, but it's okay. I like being told what to do if I respect the person who's telling me.
I think it also for me it depends on the profession.
That's true.
So like for me as a fitness professional, I've gone to like gyms. I'm not gonna like say their names and give them free promotion, but I've gone to gyms where certain like classes were being held, and I don't give any pushback. I don't like inquire any questions. Like, you got it, coach. What do you want me to do? All right. Like I'll go through the motions because being somebody who is a fitness professional, I respect the profession.
Yep.
And so I'm going to let you do your thing because I also know what it feels like to get pushback when you're trying to do your job. So it's just,
I understand that. I understand. Tell me about a time where, you were getting out of the Marine Corps where you said, you know what? I think I got to go back to work. I can't continue to be an entrepreneur. This is like, did you ever feel like you had to go back to work as opposed to just running a business?
Oh, hell yeah.
Really?
Yeah. So as soon as I got out of the Marine Corps, I thought I prepared well to exit the Marine Corps.
When you say you thought you prepared well,
right,
that insinuates that you talked to somebody about this.
Yes.
Okay. You go through the whole transition counseling and that type of thing.
I did that. I had grievances with the transition assistance program and all this other stuff because I really felt like really felt like, I've crossed all my T's, I've dotted all my I's. I'm ready to go. Like, we could go ahead and get out tomorrow and I'm good.
Yep.
But then that sounded good. Even the thought was pleasant, but then reality hit. So stepped out. October 31st was my very last day in the Marine Corps. November 1st was my first day as a self-employed entrepreneur. By December 1st, that pucker effect, no more 1st and 15th paychecks coming in.
Yep.
Christmas time.
The pucker effect.
Yeah.
The pucker effect is what?
That is when your butthole, your sphincter, is like contracted to probably about the size of like a baby's pinky nail.
All right, I got you.
And you can't even squeeze out a fart at that moment. Yeah. So it just
kind of tough to be creative as an entrepreneur. Whenever you feel that way, right?
Yeah, because you kind of focus on the pucker.
Yeah. Yep.
But it was things just got real.
Yep.
I started reaching out to a couple buddies, see if their jobs were hiring. I had to give my clients notice that, this may be coming to a close.
Yep.
It really hit it hit the fan. So it was really like maybe I wasn't as well prepared as I should have been. Maybe
looking back on it though. Be honest, like
I wouldn't change for the world.
What was the one thing that you could have done differently to prepare better?
I honestly don't know. I could have saved more money. I probably could have networked a little bit better. And I probably could have had a better understanding of the difference between running a business while you still have a safety net versus running a business when you are your safety net.
Yeah.
So because I had always run my business concurrently with being in the Marine Corps, it was never really that much of a challenge. I could always turn off the light, switch a business for a couple months, take a break, cut it back on, take a few clients, and turn it back off. It was at my whim.
Yeah, I'm with you.
But once November 1st hit, it was a whole different ballgame. there are no more options.
No.
It's no more, if you want to run a business, it's a couple months. If you don't want to run a business, it has to run.
Isn't that funny? I want to stay on this for a second. It's all good. Okay. I want to stay on this for a second. So we always run back to what we know when things get crazy.
Right.
Like if things were going great, why would you ever run and go back? You see what I'm saying? So there's fear that starts to pop all these different doubts into your mind or these different thoughts. What happens if it doesn't work out okay? And then you start looking back, be honest, you start looking back at the previous mistakes that you made as a business owner or as an entrepreneur and use that as the reason why it's relevant now. This is why it's not going to succeed. This is why I'm going to fail. Is that kind of what went through your mind whenever you were applying for jobs and telling your clients that paid you money saying, hey, listen, I don't know if I can do what I said I was going to do. I don't know if I'm going to be able to be a service provider for you anymore. I don't know if I can do that because I got to go get a job now.
Yeah, definitely went through a little bit of that. Yeah, just took me back to a little period of reflection. But yeah.
I don't want to get too deep, but at the same time, this is important.
No, you're good.
This is important because this is also where people that feel like they're prepared or people that don't take the time to think about some of these details, that's what the point of this is.
Right.
We've got to come to grips with, what is an extra month worth of networking in your case? What is an extra 6 months worth of $1,000, $1,500 a month that you can just put away? What would that have done for you? What is that doing for somebody who's about ready to go do this right now? It's a real thing. So that's why I'm asking. That's why I'm asking.
No, it's definitely a reality check. Definitely a gut punch. But I definitely felt like a failure and had to go back and realize, for one, I felt like that was the point where it really tested me as an entrepreneur. That is really when you're at that point of either you're gonna put up or shut up. Like, are you gonna go ahead and fill out the job applications? And considering that I have I'm not like some single 19-year-old entrepreneur.
No, you got family.
I have real responsibilities. I have real bills. It's so it was really at that point where either one, I just grabbed myself by the bootstraps. One thing you've heard throughout the whole time Marine Corps, adapt and overcome.
Yep.
Just had to suck it up and just push forward. And I'm glad I did.
Yeah.
So I'm glad I never got any phone calls back for the jobs I applied to.
Yep. You buckled down.
I'm glad I went through it. And I will tell you without any hesitation, that was probably the best thing I could have experienced as an entrepreneur.
So when you say the best thing, man, what you've done is you've embraced the adversity that you were in. And when I say you embraced it, it wasn't like you were running towards it like, hey, I've got adversity now. Yeah. It was like, I've got some stuff I got to figure out here.
Shit is real.
And then coming out of that and now knowing that, first of all, that you're capable of performing regardless of what the circumstances are around you, regardless of how bad it gets. You can always figure it out. You're always going to be able to figure it out. So knowing that now, how do you set goals? How do you move forward? How do you take more ground? How do you go out there and dominate the world of fitness that you're in now? Or is that part of your aspiration?
It is not. As crazy as it sounds to be an entrepreneur and not have the goal of a complete takeover, it sounds a little ridiculous. My goal is to grow as I've set my goals where it's a little bit more not necessarily baby steps, but I'm gonna do the best I can and allow the direction to go and where it's supposed to, and I'll adjust where I see fit. Right now, the focus is really just to continue to grow. And one thing that may sound stupid, and I've learned this from, he's not gonna benefit from my little pub, but Gary Keller, the real estate guy, has a book out called The One Thing. It's actually a program But it was between the one thing and a book called The 4 Hour Work Week. It's really put me into the position of trying to definitely work smarter, not harder.
Okay.
So making shorter to-do list. I never have more than 5 things on my to-do list now.
Okay.
The goal is to get down to 3. And focus on more quality-driven work than busy work.
So it's important that we cover this right here. So when I said take over the world of fitness, and I may have to just edit this part, but doing things big doesn't necessarily mean that I'm going to set some big audacious all right, so doing things big. So like you having the discipline to only put 5 things on your to-do list. You having the focus to understand that I'm only going to do what I'm capable of doing. I'm not going to set goals to where I feel like I'm going to stretch myself beyond my capabilities. That is very humble, just as from an observation standpoint. Like, how do you not allow yourself to fall off the rails, so to speak, with your goal setting? Was it because you felt like you bit off more than you can chew? Or how do you maintain that kind of humble but confident, kind of consistent work ethic that you have and that you display? Like I said, I'm going to have to go back and edit some of this stuff. But, you know.
So at first, I had the mindset of the more you have to do, the more you're doing. But in my head, as I've grown and matured as an entrepreneur, just because you're doing more doesn't mean that you're getting more done. Just because you have a lot of things on your list, so you have 30 things on your list, doesn't necessarily mean that you're being productive.
Okay.
It means you're busy, but it doesn't necessarily mean you're being productive.
Right.
And that was like something that I had to understand, because my list of things to do was 2 pages at times, and it was just ridiculous. And it was almost to the point where I felt like I was adding things because I was scared to actually dive into what I had on the agenda.
Okay.
If I had a big item, a hot item on my board, I would put 20 or 30 things a day behind what I need to do before I can do it. Like, I would do that, but first let me do this. So this needs to be done.
I got you.
And so I really had to get to the point of dividing things up between like what I would like to do and what needs to be done, and putting my focus on what needs to be done and cutting off, what I would like to do.
Yeah.
And it put me in a position where I was able to get a little bit more smarter with things and devote more mental space to things that can actually move the needle.
Okay.
Like if I take a lot of this stuff off my plate, then I can go and I can research more things to help my clients out.
Yeah.
If I take all this stuff off my plate, then I can go and I can read a little bit more about what's going on in the Austin area, where I can go and network, or I can go and attend this meeting. I can go and sit down for this podcast.
Yeah.
And I'm able to juggle a little bit more and be productive. So it gave me I guess you'd say like a bit of a breath of fresh air to like take a lot of this stuff off. That makes sense.
Yeah, it makes a lot of sense. You get those guys in the Marine Corps that they, in order to prep for a PFT or whatever, they would be so out of balance in one area that they would get burnout. Mm-hmm. And not just burnout in that one area, a lot of other things that they had neglected in order to sacrifice for this one goal would completely be in shambles. Now, you and I both know that when it comes to goal setting, when it comes to success, you have to have that passion. You have to have that burning desire to succeed in whatever it is that you put your mind to and your focus on. However, sounds like what you've done is you've been able to focus your attention so heavily on prioritization and what's important and what can fall by the wayside, and how you've been able to actually balance that and uncover that. That's a skill that not a lot of people have been able to.
And it came from messing up.
It came from messing up. What do you
So
mean?
like at the very beginning of kicking off the business transition from D White's PT, because I still had plans on doing 20 years in the Marine Corps, and then when I just made the decision to get out, I started doing email marketing. So I write newsletters, and I would write blog posts, and then I started a podcast, and I would make videos. So I was doing a lot of content-heavy stuff. But and what may fall into everything with this podcast is I was doing all of this, but I didn't have a lot of direction.
Yeah.
I didn't have a destination.
I gotcha.
I didn't understand who I wanted to serve, if I wanted to focus on fat loss, or I wanted to focus on competition prep, if I wanted to focus on like helping people build muscle or improve their athleticism.
Yeah.
I didn't know. I just knew I wanted to be a personal trainer.
Cool.
I didn't know why I was making all these blog posts, and I was writing these things like once a week. Then I would have an email newsletter that was completely different content that I would push out once a week. And then I would drop a podcast once a week. And it was so much that I wasn't understanding why I wasn't getting a response back for my work. And it all came down to not having direction, understanding where I was trying to take my business. What am I doing all this for? Am I doing it just to have fun with it?
Yeah.
Like, what's the purpose of it all? And then once I started looking at, I have a direction now.
Yeah.
There was no need for all that other stuff. Like, it was easy to scrape it off my plate because it was ineffective. It was inefficient. So, I don't know.
That's quite the lesson right there, man.
It's a hell of a lesson. It's an expensive one too. It was definitely an expensive lesson.
Time. Yeah, time and expense. I guess
it happens, man.
Well, I appreciate you. I appreciate you going into a lot of those details and really just being transparent, because we live in a world of filters. We live in a world of like, hey man, here's how great things are. You get the highlight reel in a lot of cases, and people, they're so immersed in the phone. It was interesting. I was driving on Mopac a couple days ago, and I'm driving and I'm looking around, watching people around me, and they have their phones out and they're typing. They're driving with their knee and they're typing as they're driving. And don't get me wrong, I've done it before. Before Texas introduced the hands-free, it was well before that. But what I'm talking about is the busy work associated with life. It's like, if you're a business owner, if you're a sales executive, if you're something along the lines of you're rewarded for your productivity, you feel as if you need to be productive all the time, as opposed to learning the lesson that you learned. And so it's important that we don't have to participate in a world of filters. It's okay to get authentic. It's okay to let your hair down a little bit and understand the prioritization of productivity and efficiency.
It feels better.
What's that?
It feels much better.
Hell yeah, it feels better.
It feels great.
It's a good way to summarize. All right, so to wrap this up, what? Well, first of all, how can people find you? How do people get in touch with Derrick if they want to do what it is that they want to do in fitness, and how can they help you? Is it corporations? Is it people? How do you help corporations if in fact that's what you do? Talk to me about that.
Okay. Well, to reach out, Total Health Evolution, not Revolution, Evolution. My Southeast Texas tends to come out. TotalHealthEvolution.com. Total Health Evolution on just about anything. I prefer it if just find me, Derrick White, on LinkedIn. For online personal training, I'll be upfront and honest. I'm not really taking many online clients. It's not on my website. But just reach out to me, ask any questions. If it's a company event, I'd love to come out for a lunch and learn. If you guys just want to sit down and just converse over some things that could benefit your employees, just let me know.
So when you say that, companies, they invest a boatload of money to have insurance plans and benefits programs, and they want to make things available to their employees. Also, the health of their employees is very indicative with the health of their organization. So
very much so.
Have you done some of those before, or you've talked to corporations about the effect? Here's a long-term cost of not taking care of your employees or investing in wellness programs?
Yes. Luckily, a lot of companies are starting to understand that not only is including a type of corporate wellness program into their company mantra, I guess you could say, is a good recruiting tool.
Yeah.
because companies now have started putting more value into their employees, because that's where you get your productivity from, that's where you get your customer service from, that's where you get your sales from.
Yep.
It's not necessarily just your product or your brand name. It's when your customers come in contact with your representatives, and they want to have the best reps.
Yep.
But the Kaiser report has shown that more and more companies are bringing on health and wellness professionals to take over their wellness programs or establish one, because it does save them a ton of money.
Yeah.
I have a law firm, I'll leave them nameless because I don't want anybody trying to steal my stuff. I have a law firm that I'm in negotiation with right now, and they're putting out $1.2 million. They're paying $1.2 million a year in insurance premiums for their attorneys. Their goal is to reduce that by 10%, which is massive. So they see the value in that. I mean, yes, they save $120,000, but on the other side of it, they also see that this also means I have healthy employees.
Yep.
And they're not going to the doctor as much. They're healthier. They feel better about themselves.
Not like it's stressful at all being a lawyer. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah. And they have several different specialties too. So I'm pretty sure everybody's running around there banging their heads against brick walls.
Yeah. So
yeah, I definitely say it's beneficial for companies to have some type of inclusive wellness program.
For sure. What's one thing? And this would be the last thing. We'll wrap up with this. People know where to find you. Got a little bit of info about your business. Obviously, you're a veteran, former United States Marine. What's one thing, if you were talking to somebody who was fixing to get out of the military, what's one thing in terms of checking the box that you would suggest that they do or have done before they get out?
Before you get out, save you money. I would say it's definitely deeper than just putting some money to the side in your TSP. It's deeper than just having $50 a month is what your training command will try to convince you to do. It's deeper than that. When you've made the decision to get out, for one, the uncle who owns the business does not exist. I've heard that so many times from troops getting out. What are you gonna go do? Well, I have an uncle who runs a business. Sure you do. Everybody does, right? Mm-hmm. You got rich uncles. But I think the most important thing for anybody to do if they're getting out is to look in the mirror and be honest with yourself. If this is the right decision for you, and why are you getting out? I think it's the biggest thing. If you're getting out because you're tired of getting fussed at and you want to be on your own, just understand that has consequences with it. Similar to moving out of their house with your parents, and when you're in high school, you want to move out because you're tired of being under their rules, and then you hit the real world and you find out that real world rules have real consequences. So keep that in mind as you think about getting out. Really think about why. Maybe you've been a brat and you just need to suck it up and ride it out. Allow yourself a little bit more time to save up some money so you can do it properly. So
that's awesome. That's good. Appreciate your time, man.
I'm full of all kinds of fortune cookie signs, man. I'm good for it.
Fortune cookie sign. I like it. That's awesome. Well, appreciate y'all. This upcoming week, we've got a few episodes that are going to hit. So check us out, SoundCloud, download it there, or go to Facebook, Unofficial Knucklehead, Instagram, Knucklehead Podcasts. So get some wins, get out there, make some mistakes, learn from them, and learn from other people too. That's called wisdom, at least that's what I've been told. So, all right, we'll see y'all. Take care. Love you.